Hey everyone, welcome to the Morning Brew.
Welcome to the Morning Brew.
Cheryl, we're back together.
We are back together. I love hanging out with you, and I love just talking about all the exciting things that are happening here.
That's right.
Yeah.
It is always a good time to be in good company.
Always.
Cheryl, I would love to hear, before we get into anything deep,
Okay.
tell me about your week.
Oh my goodness. Okay. It was pretty good. My weekend was really busy. I did some local stuff, which is nice. I was homeward bound, and I launched a book release. I helped host a book release launch for an author in the city, and then I hosted a big gospel concert. It was like huge at a church called Global Kingdom in Scarborough, which if anybody knows where that is. And this week has been pretty busy with a lot of meetings, some transition, which we spoke about, expansion of the work that I do at WSC and bringing on some new team members. So there's a lot of onboarding and saying goodbye. It was like that kind of an interesting spring. It's a new season, right? Some new things happening.
That's a good way to put it.
That's
A
a
new
new-
season, kind
Yeah.
of working through the transitional things.
Yeah.
That's great.
Do you feel that too? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me is just that the sun is more prominent.
Oh, I love
I love
it.
to just, even if it's just sitting out on the deck, having a coffee, listening to, I don't know, the cars on the road or whatever it is, there's something about just the nice, fresh air, the sunshine,
yeah.
not wearing a coat. We're so close.
We're so close.
And I don't mind the winter,
Yeah.
but it has a time, right? Everything has a time.
Yeah.
That time is finished now.
But everyone's mood is picking up too with the sun,
Yes,
which I
the
love.
people you see, everyone is smiling,
Love
and
it.
it is wonderful. I had the opportunity this week. Some of our staff at the church, as we mentioned in the service today,
Nice.
we went up to Muskoka Woods for a bit of a staff retreat,
Nice.
some team building, some annual planning kind of things as we're wrapping up everything for the next ministry that's coming up in the summer. And it was lovely just to be out among the trees and by the water and just see all that the Lord has made. It's so good.
Nice.
so
Did you
good.
get to go by the water?
I wanted to go by the water, but it was very cold in the morning, and I thought this is not the
Deceiving.
time.
Really bright, but super
Really
cold.
bright, but super cold. But we also had some incredible things that have happened in the past week at the church. We've just wrapped up week 2 of Alpha Online,
Come on,
which has been so
Alpha.
good. We've got a great group, great conversations happening, Alpha
Nice.
Online. But another thing that we happened last Saturday or Sunday night at the Bowmanville community was we had a worship night. We've been doing these worship nights at the church. Look at this photo. It was amazing because we had
Wow.
all of these candles among the stage. The pews were filled. People were
Gorgeous.
singing. We
Yeah.
sung some old songs, some old Michael W. Smith,
Come
which I
on.
mean,
Let's go,
you can't get much
nostalgia.
better than that.
Yep.
It was wonderful. But we had a really great time. And one thing that I so appreciate about Sanctus as a church is the way that we approach musical worship. It's a big part of our services.
Yeah.
But outside of that, we're just a people that love to sing.
Yeah.
Right? We love music. We have so many different talented musicians that attend our church that sometimes we need these extended times of worship. That's a little bit different than a Sunday morning where it's,
Yeah.
we have second service, so we need to, not be timed, but like there's only so much time in the morning and people need to pick up the kids and all these things. Where when we have a worship night, it's just a free for all in terms of, come stay as long as you can. If you need to leave a little bit early, no worries. If you're late, we're not worried about anything.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things about the past Bowmanville worship night is that we had a string section on the stage.
Come on.
It was just, we had Kevin Orderico from our Pickering site.
Yeah.
He's an incredible cello player. Just every time I had the opportunity to play with Kevin,
awesome.
just beautiful cello
Yeah.
player. But then another thing, this is Annie Mills from Bowmanville, who is part of the youth worship team, but also is wrapping up apprenticeship to become a worship leader. So Annie led worship in the morning and then played violin and sang in the evening.
Love
And it's so
it.
great to see just the community from different places, different Sanctus locations, different generations coming together to worship the Lord, but to do something a little bit different than a Sunday morning.
Oh man, and I think though the wonderful worship is kind of waving this way, isn't it? It's coming towards right here.
Ooh, a little segue.
Little segue.
We have another worship night that's going to be happening in Ajax on Friday, May 24th. I believe it's at 7 p.m. It's going to be an incredible time. I love when we do worship nights at all our different sites because normally, or in the past, worship nights have primarily been in Ajax, just because it's been, kind of central around the different Sanctus locations. It's a little bit larger of an auditorium so that we could have more people. But it's great to see the different local Sanctus locations starting to kind of host their own worship nights. I think Port Perry has one in the plans that they're talking about.
Nice.
I know Pickering has talked about that as well.
Yes.
So if you're interested in coming to another worship night, May 24th, here in Ajax, it's going to be a great time with the Ajax crew. I'll be there playing guitar for this one.
Come on.
Super fun, and I hope to see you there.
Oh, that's so good. Well, guys, I'm so excited. Brandon's asked me to encourage your hearts for a few minutes, and I can't wait to do that. And I'd love to talk to you guys about something that's been really on my heart, and I think God is speaking to us because Pastor John's been touching on it a little bit in the most recent message. And I want us to look just really briefly at the life of Joseph. And, he's kind of coming down the pipe in our series, so you'll be hearing about him, I'm sure, at some point. And you'll find his story if you're new to Joseph and new to this whole thing called the Bible. You'll find his story in Genesis 37 to 50. You can read that in your own time and really get the details there. But here's a quick overview. Amazing story about Joseph. Joseph is a dreamer. That's what you need to know. And not only is he a dreamer, but he has an actual divine spiritual gift to interpret dreams. And God gives him two incredible dreams. One, he's out in the field and he's putting together wheat. They work the land and they put them in bundles called sheaves. And in this dream, he sees the 11 sheaves. He is part of a family of 12. So 11 sheaves means 11 bros. And he sees the sheaves bow down to him. And that just is like overwhelming to him. And he understands that there's a moment coming where his brothers will literally bow down to him. If that's not enough, he gets another dream. And in the dream, he sees the sun, the moon, and 11 stars. So the sun and moon meaning his father and his mother, and the 11 stars representing his 11 brothers, and all of them bow to him at his feet. And so he's been given this promise of some sort of elevation, governmental, positional authority, a moment in time where he will be elevated to a place where his family will bow to him. Well, he does what all families would do. He thinks he's in a safe space because families are supposed to be safe places, and he shares this with his brothers. Well, it ignites his brothers with jealousy and really evil thoughts, murderous thoughts actually, and they plan a horrible plan to kill him. And thank the Lord for Reuben, who intercedes and says, let's not do that. Let's sell him to slavery. And they throw him in a pit. Well, you're going to fast forward from that moment where Joseph is being sold as a slave by his own brothers because of this promise that he has shared that God has given him, and it doesn't sit well with the boys. And we see God's favor. He's rising, even coming out of the pit, coming out of slavery. We find him here in this beautiful place, a little palace run by a man named Potiphar, sort of a governor. And God's favor is all over Joseph, and he quickly rises in the ranks, and he's put in charge of the entire household. So we see literally the manifestation of that verse, that what the enemy intended for hurt and harm, God turned it around for his good and his purposes. And now he's over everything. Potiphar entrusts him literally with everything. And the Bible says that Potiphar's only thought every day is just what he's going to eat. That's how much he trusts Joseph. But unfortunately, Potiphar's wife is a bit flirtatious. And Joseph, being the good, honorable, godly man, he refuses those flirtations. And the wife lies on him and slanders him, accuses him of some horrible things, and he gets thrown in prison. So we're all caught up. And now we find Joseph falsely accused in this horrible, horrible place, being lied on in this time of being isolated in prison. And here's the question for us right now. What do we do when our life looks so different than the promise that we know God's given us? What do we do in the waiting when we are given a horrible detour or a crushing blow? When we're in a hard season, what is our posture? What should we be thinking about? What does the Lord want us to do in those moments? And so I want to invite you to look at this moment of Joseph in the prison. We see a young man who has a dream, has a call of God on his life, is given a promise, but suddenly finds himself thrown into the prison, lied on, in a place of darkness and despair. And that may be you right now. And even in this series, you know, there's this awesome, joyful, patient, loving waiting, trusting God. But maybe the waiting is hard. And maybe in the waiting, you're angry. Can we be real? Maybe in the waiting, you don't understand. And so this is where Joseph is. And I think we can learn about 4 beautiful things from this. So we're talking about being thrown into harsh, isolating environments far from the dreams that we once had that God spoke to our lives. Number 1, I think we can learn this from Joseph, that even in the darkest times, God is still at work. Can I encourage you? We have a song here that we love so much. It's like an anthem by Sanok called Waymaker. And I just wanted to say a line from that. Even when you don't see it, God's working, guys. And even when you don't feel it, he's working. In fact, he never stops working on your behalf. And we can see that even in the prison moments of Joseph's life, God is still working out his plans for Joseph. I love that. Number 2, this is a beautiful, beautiful one for us to hang on to. Guys, God never abandons his children. He never leaves us. The Bible says he never forsakes us, that he is with us always. And you can see the proof of that in Genesis 39:21. This is what God is doing while Joseph is in the darkest moment of his life. It says that the Lord was with Joseph. And I love the King James. It says, and showed him steadfast love. The NIV says this, that God showed Joseph kindness in that hard season and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison ward. God is with you, friend. He is working it out for your good. And when you don't see it, know it, feel it to be true. Just hope in the fact that God is working out his plans for your life. I love Lamentations chapter 3, verses 22. And it reminds us, what an encouragement for our heart, that the steadfast love of God never ceases. In the storms, it never ceases. In the failures of life, it never ceases. And it goes on to say, his mercies never come to an end. I want your heart to be encouraged today. Here's number 3. And this one might be for someone who's really feeling like life is unfair. Despite the unfairness of the situation, the injustice of it all, Joseph remained connected to God. Please hear those words. Not that God remained connected to Joseph. We know that's what he does. That is the very nature of God. He is closer than any brother. He stays with us. But this, guys, Joseph remained connected to God. He prayed. He trusted him. He allowed God to work and hoped in him. And I love this. In the challenging seasons of our lives, it's not the time to run away. It's not the time to walk away from God. In fact, could I challenge us today to lean in, to draw close to God in the midst of opposition? And I want to encourage you here that God never promised us a storm-free life. Can we just have a real moment? God never promised us roses and pink and bubble gum and sunshine and a beautiful, well-ordained life with no conflict. That's not true. What God did promise us is that in the storms of life, that he would be with us in those storms. And we can find that reminder in Isaiah 43, verse 2. Can I read it to you? God says, when. That's the big word there, not if, when you pass through the hard waters of life, I will be with you. And through the rivers, I will be with you, and they shall not overwhelm you or sweep over you. My friends, God is with us in the storm. He is with us in the hard seasons of our waiting. And we only need to trust him, to hope in him, and to remain connected in prayer, in worship, in times of silence, to stay in the presence of God and not to leave in the hard moments. Here's one as we get ready to close. And this is for someone who just needs that extra lift today. Joseph never allowed his circumstances to define him. Even in the moment of prison, he still walked with the promise. He still served his gifting. He interpreted dreams for other people. He allowed God to use him in the midst of the hardship. He didn't wallow in self-pity. He didn't get angry at God and just shut down, but rather he said that I will do whatever God asks me to do in that moment. So I just want to tell you that whatever you're going through, it is not who you are. It is just a season. So lastly, as I get ready to just close in prayer real quick, can I just remind you of Jeremiah 29, verse 11? God says, "For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." The trials we face today, friends, may be preparing us for a breakthrough or a victory of tomorrow. And the challenges that we endure are sometimes meant to shape our hearts, to build our character, to strengthen our prayer life and our worship. Sometimes the waiting is for us. It's not reflective of God's inability to answer. It is a moment to shape our character. So I hope that encourages your heart, and I pray that you draw close to God in those hard seasons and don't run away. God is with you. Amen.
Cheryl, what a great reminder of how the Lord, I love that, the steadfast love, right? That hesed love of God is with us through whatever trial. And through these trials, the Lord continues to work. He never stops working. Yeah. Such a great song, such a great reminder. Thank you for leading us through that.
Yeah.
Until next week, I hope this has been an encouragement to you. As we're in the waiting at all different periods of our lives, there's different periods of being in the waiting. Maybe you're just in the waiting of the next episode of The Morning Brew. But until next time, The Morning Brew is brewed to inspire, served to equip, and we'll see you next week. God bless you.